kid from the bush who grew into a legend in his own lunchtime, former SAS soldier Michael J. Malone has seen it all. This is Never Die Wondering, Mick Malone in his own words, hosted by the man himself, Mick Malone, along with Toby Malone, as they examine this long, storied career in the Australian Special Forces. Join us each week for behind-the-scenes insight, exclusive readings, and brutally honest truths from a true original. Welcome to Never Die Wondering. Welcome to episode 30 of Never Die Wondering, Mick Malone in his own words, a podcast that explores the life and legend of Michael John Malone, OAM. My name is Toby Malone, Mick's son and co-host of this podcast series, joined by the man whose name is in the title, Mick Malone. G'day, Dad.
Hey, Tob. Good
How's
to
it
see you,
going?
mate.
Yeah, you too.
I've missed you.
Yeah. Well, it's nice. It's nice to have a project like this, which gives you an excuse to get together and have a
Yeah.
yarn. My previous podcast, I did a podcast all about James Joyce with a mate of mine, and we saw each other every week for nearly a year while we read Finnegan's Wake, which is a podcast that you can get out there in the world if you're interested in Finnegan's Wake at the same time as being interested in the SAS. So look for my podcast Wake. You can get anywhere. But I don't speak to him as much anymore because we don't catch up on the podcast. So I'm glad to have this excuse to get together and have a chat, and we'll be reading this book, and then we'll get into the next book once we finish this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll read.
You hope.
No, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, Hail Mary.
Yeah. Um, so lots to talk about. I mean, so the last couple of episodes, things have been a little bit placid. Hanging around Newey Dat, being on duty, driving Reg Beasley around, always accepting the moment when he threatened to kill you because he thought you were someone trying to murk him in the nighttime. But now we get back into the action with a chapter called Hair Parting. So just explain what hair parting time means.
It's like the rounds came too close and you get your hair parted by a round just missing you.
Yeah. So did that happen very often, or was this?
Quite a few times, actually.
Yeah.
He was never a good shot. He always fired high.
Right. So yeah. So it's yeah. I mean, so obviously the idea of a bullet whistling through your hair or knocking your hat off is a lot
Yeah.
to. Yeah.
Yeah, a few of the boys got one through the water bottle and through the collar,
Right.
uh, through his backpack. Quite a few blokes like that.
Yeah.
But luckily everyone escaped in one piece.
Yeah. We sort of talk a lot about how there was only one man killed in action during your year, but were there many blokes wounded? Who
A few blokes, yeah.
blokes,
I've,
took. I mean, so we've already talked about how you got hit in the eye with a shell casing, and you were on RNC a little bit for that.
yeah.
But were there any blokes who took bullet wounds who you had to get out of the bush? And
No, we didn't have any on my tour, but the
mm,
first tour, of course, Russell Copeman
yeah,
was shot on a track and Juby Matten got him out. Um, there's a few people like that. Bob, when they got mortared, Bob Davies lost an eye.
mhm.
But no, we were blessed with one piecedom.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. I mean, no wonder you were called the Phantoms of the Jungle. They did a lot
Yeah, I
of
think
shit.
we made an effort to be better than the other guy,
Yeah,
and all the patrol commanders were jets. You know, Freddie Roberts and Bags of Styles and Clem Dwyer. They were all very good patrol commanders and well led, and we followed.
hmm Yeah,
Yeah.
good. Well, I mean, we're going to hear a bit about that today. So, we'll be reading chapter 27 of Two Ranks on the Road, 35 Years of Australian Special Forces Service by Michael J. Malone, OAM, published in 2024 by Imprimatur Books, Perth. This chapter, titled Hair Parting, covers pages 189 to 194 in the print edition. The ebook may have slightly different numbering, so follow along from the beginning of the chapter. As we read, the body of the text will be read by author Mick Malone. Whenever we come across a footnote, we'll pause in the least disruptive way possible, and I'll read the footnotes. And now, without further ado, Two Ranks on the Road.
Chapter 27, Hair Parting, 1970. Nothing was ever simple. It wasn't long before Clem had a warning order for us. We were again heading north to the Mate Towers, where there had been a lot of NVA VC activity reported. We were never too keen on this area because the enemy was always armed for bear, as it were, and we were hoping for a generally quiet patrol. Since the wet season had started, it didn't take long for the jungle to dense up and take on this glorious green coat. The primary jungle meant that it was quiet, gloomy, and silent, and the big drawback was the density of the secondary jungle, which made travel quite difficult, and secateurs were a must. All the creeks and washaways, monsoon water flowing into the Songrai, were running a banker and were difficult to cross. Clem did a VR
Footnote, visual recce.
with 161 recce flight in a Sioux chopper to scope out the boundaries of our AO and pick the likely LZs, while the rest of us spent half a day drawing rations, equipment, and ammo. When Clem got back, we headed for the range for rehearsals and firing all of our weapons, hoping that the tanks had gone home. Bar had his SLR in action. He could shoot. Clem and him would become a useful duo. I'd like to think I was quite handy with the SLR as well. The patrol had given it uh, given it to quite a few VC groups in our 9 months so far, and hoped our luck would hold out for the next 3 months. Clem got the warning order, and we immediately swung into action. It was raining daily now. You could set your watch on the monsoon every afternoon at 5 o'clock or 1700. Gary Dorr was now our patrol 2IC, Pancho having been sent to the naughty chair, and slipped down to the Q store to pick up rations for 8 days. We headed down to Dez's bunker to draw ammo, up to the SIG shack to pick up radios and codes, op centre for maps. There was a lot to do in just a couple of days. My injured eye was cleared by the RMO down at 8 Camp Hospital, which was important because this was going to be a six-man fighting patrol, and we were heavily armed. We carried 6 claymores. Each man had 250 rounds of ammo and 2 by M26 frag grenades, except for Clem, who preferred 2 M34 white phos grenades, his favourite. In all, the patrol was armed with four 7.62mm SLRs and 2 by 5.56 M16s under and over, with 40mm grenade launchers. 6 by grenades for each, plus 2 CS gas grenades, 10 M26 grenades, and 2 white phos grenades.
Footnote, Wilson pickets in US jargon.
What WP. Clem went up to the ops zone and got his briefing and maps for all of us. When he came back, we expected him to call us, but no, he disappeared into his hoochie. Clem always liked a brief period of introspection before launching into a SMEAC special. An hour later, he called out to meet us in the rec room in 30 minutes. Incidentally, this is a place where we watched the NASA moon landing, as Neil Armstrong made his unforgettable statement. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. I stood there gobsmacked at these blurry images on our black and white TV, a huge contrast to the realities of life as we were living it. What a moment, one that JFK had predicted in 1961. It's a pity he never lived long enough to witness it. When we got there, Clem had set up a large 1:25,000 map on an easel with a row of chairs in front of it. We sat down and Clem briefed us on what the patrol was about, where we were going, and so forth. We would infill by chopper the day after tomorrow. We studied our picto maps closely to see where all the LZs were in the type of bush in the AO. Clem pointed out our infill LZ and the direction he planned on going day one. There were quite a few large tracks throughout the AO and a myriad of footprints, and were supposedly a couple of transit camps in the AO where the NVA would come down the Ho Chi Minh Trail and into the Mai Towers. From bases in the mountains, they could rest up and commence infiltrating into Phuoc Tuy. It was our job to scope them out and disrupt them.
Footnote. This included capturing intelligence. We would capture money, weapons, and a lot of documents. One earlier squadron even captured a radio. We would pass all of the intelligence on to the int pests to consider whether it was of any use. Usually you'd only hand in half the money. The other half was divvied up amongst the blokes.
Fair enough, too. Before they could get any further south. If we could catch a bunch in a claim or ambush, we would have played our part. Before we knew it, it was the day to move out. We had a policy that there'd be no drinking the night before, so infill, so it was a pretty early night. The 9th Squadron briefing hut seemed pretty tense compared to their normal laid-back attitude. It appears the RAF were aware of the region was pretty hot and we would need a heavy fire team.
Footnote. Heavy type fire team consisted of 3 gunships.
To keep an eye on us. If we could make it in safely, we were on track to do the job. As they cranked up the Hueys, we took our seats. I always had a ghost of a thought that maybe this may be my last, and looked around at the others. I knew I wasn't the only one with a bit of wind up. There were serious expressions on all the faces, with Clem chewing madly on a stick of gum. Once we cleared Kangaroo Pad and headed north, a calm seemed to settle over us all. A good thing about a picto map is that you can pick up salient features such as clearings, creeks and hills as you go, and the pilots were very adept at putting patrols exactly where they wanted to go. The pilot turned around and gestured to Clem that we were there. He flew down to treetop level and flared over a grassy spot, 30 metres from the bush. By this time, our seat was off and the adrenaline was pumping. The 6 of us piled out the right side of the side door and bolted for the trees. We followed our normal routine to a T, propping just inside the tree line to listen. Once the choppers had departed and we were satisfied Sir Charles hadn't detected us, we shook out on a bearing north. We could hear rifle shots to our north and east, in all probability signalling to each other. Clem had a cunning plan, find their camps, ambush their tracks in and out, and bring an airstrike in on them. Sounds simple, right? Nothing was ever simple in this little jungle war. We had the essence of surprise on our side, or so we thought. In the first hour, we heard a lot of rifle shots to the north and west, more signalling the presence of a patrol. Probably us. Our AO butted up against another patrols, but we had no idea where they were, and there was no 1,000-metre buffer. Now, there was a 1,000-metre buffer between AOs, so we couldn't bump into them. Reg had saturated this area with patrols to really get to the bottom of where the VC NVA bases were. By this stage, the light was fading and Clem was keen to find an LUP spot for the night. He was always looking for really thick secondary growth in which he could carve a tunnel with his secateurs. Once we were all in there, he would cut various escape routes. We would then sit on our packs and listen. Once Clem was happy, we would then get our ground sheet and silk out, taking our webbing off last. Clem would then brief us on the last light of the fading light. Clem was purely cold this first night in a food. Food was purely cold this first night. In a can of beans and a swig of water would suffice. Clem always insisted on sentries. So a watch could be passed around with Clem always having the sparrow fart shift.
Footnote: We stuck to the rules this first night, but from then on we would arrange for the second last man to have the watch and wake Clem for this shift. Cruel, I know, but we were the only patrol to take shifts in the night. We never got sprung, although a few of the blokes snored, me included.
Where are we at? Oh, every night when we LUP to the night, everyone was dog-tired and Clem insisted on his picket ritual. One of the duties was to nudge anyone snoring. Some blokes, though, was impossible to wake. They'd grunt and roll over, which was as good as it was going to get. A few times we discovered we were close to a used track, and one night saw lanterns coming through the bush. We stood to, naturally, ready for war, but the lanterns veered off and left us unmolested. Shits were trumped for a bit there. We quietly packed our bongos, webbing on, pack on, weapon at the ready, and sat there till first light. Then we moved off. We inspected the track, which was really well used. We did the old tracker trick of by counting how many Ho Chi Minh sandals treads were in a metre and determining that quite a few VC had passed by. Another time, while watching a track, we counted 10 women with giant packs on their backs, moving at a fair clip. We didn't spot any weapons, so we held our fire, knowing we would be in our right to shoot, given that they were carrying war supplies. It became a subject of fierce debate in the boozer later. The more gung-ho members reckon we should have brassed them up, but cooler heads prevailed. My conscience is clear to this day on this incident. We dissected the AO for 5 days, encountering many tracks and old camps, but nothing Clem was interested enough to lay an ambush. I got comms each day using a simple ground wire, and Clem gave me messages to encode, which were generally 5 words or less, while Nui Dat's replies were of similar brevity. On our penultimate day, we headed west towards our scheduled exfil pad and spent a day circumnavigating the LZ to ensure Church Charles was not sitting in the bush waiting for us. There was quite a large open paddock, and we were sure it was secure. We propped about 100 metres back in some thick scrub for the night. As our pickup was scheduled for 8 a.m., we packed up and made our way slowly towards the pad. We set up our LUP and sat quietly for 15 minutes. We just started to put the kettle on, as it were, when we started to hear what was sounded like dinging from the other side of the LZ. Clem was immediately alert with new orders. Gary Dorr, 2IC, was to head out if the shit hit the fan, followed by me and others. Clem, who already pulled out a white phos grenade and prepared it for use, was to bring up the rear. The digging had stopped at this stage, and we were all very much on alert. Clem stood up behind a large tree with a white phos ready to throw it. He signalled enemy, thumbs down, and shot one VC 8 metres away. On his signal, Gary Dorr led the way out, and we hightailed it out onto the LZ while Clem threw the white phos, which went up in a vast explosion of white smoke. We hit the deck just as an RPD MG opened up on the flank, firing enfilade along the creek line. It was hair parting time. At this moment, I realised I had lost a large 37 pattern pouch off my belt containing 6 magazines. If this was to be a protracted stoush, I might be in trouble. Luckily, all of the MG's rounds went high. We could hear a second MG begin firing off on the other side. What we thought was a band of local VC digging yams on the edge of the LZ turned out to be a well-armed NVA force. We returned fire with rifles and 40mm bombs just as Clem came running out of the bush. Halfway to us, he went down, and we were thinking the worst, of course. Just then he appeared in the long grass, running in a doubled-up manner. The track and crack and thump from the RPDs meant they knew where we were, although all firing high. Just then, an Erkten burst into life. It was our taxi, and he was coming in. I had 5 proppers, all red, and started to throw them into the grass downwind. Before long, there was a raging grass fire, and the chopper landed smack in the middle of it. The smoke from the fire also had the effect of covering us. We were caught and away. Clem had ordered a HFT to cover the pickup, but they had been over in Bin Tui province, supporting Chris Jennison's patrol, and had to return to the DAT to refuel and rearm. Instead, some enterprising soul had the bright idea to call for air support from air headquarters in Saigon, and in came a pair of OV-10 Broncos, the black ponies, basically the warthogs of our day, to support us. As we flew at about 1,000 feet, we saw the OV-10s and rocket dive bombing and rocketing where we'd been sitting half an hour before. Two planes put in about 4 rockets each into the enemy and a couple of iron bombs. It was a bit of a thrill to see this action, although it wouldn't have been much fun for the enemy to be blown up with white phosphor and then rocketed and bombed the shit out of.
And that was chapter 27 from Two Ranks on the Road, 35 Years of Australian Special Forces Service by Michael J. Malone as read by the author. Wow. So,
The photograph there on that page,
yeah, I'll get to it.
and Paul Callahan's in it.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Okay. Um, yeah. So a fairly, uh, a fairly pedestrian kind of patrol until until it's not.
That's right.
Sort of you felt like
All
there
the
was
characters out.
yeah no ambushes worth laying, and then suddenly when you're trying to get out, you've been ambushed yourself. It's a tricky one. And yeah, and this at the end of this chapter we have a photograph of the patrol being briefed by Clem Dwyer, picture of the group there, and that includes Paul Callahan and Tika Gray, as well as Gary Dorr, Mike Getty, Mick Malone, Clem Dwyer, all sort of getting ready to go out into the bush. And yeah, it's an exciting chapter, this one.
Yeah. No, it was certainly exciting at the time.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
mate.
Yeah, so lots going on in that chapter. It's a sick man fighting patrol, so that's a different kind of patrol to the four man ones that you were going out in earlier,
The Charlie weren't a very good shot.
right? But the so this six man patrol was sent out for it was because you're expecting action,
Well, it was called a recce ambush patrol.
right?
So you recce the area, and if you found anything worth ambushing, you ambushed it. But we didn't. We didn't
Hmm.
find anything. The NDA just appeared out of the blue, and we never saw them. Never got any indication they were going to be there.
Yeah.
So we, our, our our claymores went home with us unused.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. And there's a section at the end of that chapter we're talking about the digging. What was the digging? What were they digging? Because you said you thought they were digging yams.
Yeah, they normally dug yams,
But was
which
that
are
what was it? Was
like a
they dig? Yeah, but was that was the digging the yams, or were they digging something to do with the ambush?
nah. They were digging for food. They had no food.
Right.
It was all live off the land stuff for the old Charlie.
Hmm.
And if they captured any stuff, then they plundered it basically.
But they had machine guns set up there. I mean, it looked like they were waiting for you at the end of that.
Yeah, I think they knew there was somebody in the area. Um, that it's a bit hard not to when you put the kettle on or you heat something up and the smell.
Hmm.
They're like there's customs dogs; they can smell things a mile away.
Right.
And you just got to take it as it comes. And if you get away with it, so fine. But as I spoke about earlier, a couple of Americans sitting on their LZ, um, lighting up and probably smoking, and then Charlie snuck up on them and killed a couple of them.
Yeah. 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 It's sort of a miracle that no one died in this one.
Oh,
You
it
know,
is total.
that moment of Clem going down, I'm sure you can still see it in your mind of him running and then
Yeah,
running out of the bush and then hitting the
we were
deck.
dead set convinced he was hit.
And he'd just thrown himself down to avoid the.
Yeah, I think so. I think the fire was fairly heavy, and he thought, I better I better make myself a small target here. Clem
Right.
was a big man.
Hmm.
Clem was 6'1" or something,
Right.
and full of piss and bad manners, old Clem.
Hmm.
But he was a good operator.
Yeah.
He'd been around a bit.
Yeah. And then there's a section in this which talks about a decision you have to make when you see women carrying packs running through the bush, and you got to
Yeah,
make a decision about whether or not or what you do. Because I guess if you could say, well, then maybe they're unarmed, so that we shouldn't. But then whatever they're carrying is probably going to be used
yeah,
against us later on.
yeah, absolutely. No, it was one of those things where you just had everyone in the patrol agreed that we weren't going to fire if there was no weapons.
Hmm.
But if there had been single weapon, one weapon, like someone guarding the group going through, we'd have fired and cleaned up a heap of them.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, and there's so many instances of patrols getting into trouble where they get overzealous in a moment like that, and with villages and things like that. And the Americans really sort of got into a lot of trouble with some of that overzealous activity in those situations, and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
like the
You need to be wartime is a terrible thing. You just need to have a few moral bloody
yeah,
moral compass working. Um, if you don't, you can do all sorts of dreadful stuff.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good chapter. It's one of those ones where you sort of get a sense of not only the monotony of the patrols, but also the fact that action pops up at any time.
Yeah,
Yeah. And the last thing I wanted to bring up about this chapter is you talk early on in it about witnessing the moon landing. Uh,
yeah. That
from
was a seminal moment, mate.
yeah.
So bad the reception though, the black and white TV.
And obviously you knew it was coming. They've been planning the moon landing of the different Apollo missions have been going up the previous
Yeah, I'm
few
not sure
years.
whether we knew it was coming or whether we were just in the rec hut playing table tennis or something or whatever. Um, but there it was on TV.
Yeah.
Who'd have thought?
Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. And not only that, the other important thing you saw on the TV in Vietnam in 1969 was our beloved Balmain Tigers winning the premiership.
Yeah, mate, how good was that?
Well,
City Williams scores the winning try.
it's a little bit before my time, but the last time Balmain won the premiership, so we hang on to it.
No, it's
Yeah,
always good to have something to hang your hat on,
yeah, up
mate.
until 2005 when West won it, but they're never going to win it again. We know that. So yeah, no, just
Let's do
being
something dramatic.
yeah. Well, that 1969 was a important year. You've got the moon landing and I always thought it was funny that the year that you were in Vietnam was the year that my mum was in her last year of high school.
Yeah.
So lots of things going on that year.
Her and a girl, good mates.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, so lots going on there, and yeah, and the idea of the hair parting really gives you to that. We talked about the 5 cent, 10 cent. Where do you ever get used to it? You know, when you're under attack here, do you think, all right, I've got this? You know, since you've been under fire a few times now.
Oh no, you sort of tend to rely on your mates to cover their arcs. So
Hmm.
each side and front and back's all covered. So you don't have to worry about looking over your shoulder and that sort of stuff because you know your mate's going to cover you, as the Americans call it, cover your six.
Hmm.
But I don't know, we were pretty confident in our own abilities, and we said to ourselves in the boozer that we were always going to be better than Charlie, and which is a little bit. little bit hope filled, but I think at the end of the day, it turned out pretty accurate.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
I just
Well,
think the
yeah.
the BC machine gun uh, instructors never never made sure that the gunners could shoot straight. It was
Hmm.
always everything went high, chung, over the
Right.
top.
And so you're getting towards the end of your year in Vietnam now by this point. So are you counting down towards going home?
Oh yeah, yeah. 20 and a wakey and all this sort of stuff.
And you know how many more patrols you might have in front of you? You
No,
sort of,
not really. You know you're going to have a couple,
hmm
but it just depends on the amount of work that the task force headquarters gives the OC, and whether it becomes a quiet time or whether we get a bit of um, little bit of quiet time to get our thoughts together for going home.
hmm
I guess it's 12 months. At this stage, we're all a bit out of our trees.
Yeah.
Um, that's why later on in later conflicts like Afghanistan, they limited the tours to 4 to 6 months,
Right.
which allowed a bloke to come home and regenerate and then go back. So some of those blokes have done 7 or 8 tours of Afghanistan, for God's sake.
Mm.
Whereas our 12 months was enough for most people.
Yeah.
A lot of people got out of the army and said, "That's it, I've had it."
Although,
But
although as we'll find out in the future chapter, you fully intended to go back
yeah,
3 years
yeah,
later.
I wanted to be a patrol commander, so
Mm.
yeah, going back was always on the cards.
Right. But before that, we got to End of Ops, and that's the next chapter. So we'll be hearing about that when you got to the point where you have done your year, and we'll find out about that in the next episode. So that is all the time we have this week for Never Die Wondering. So join us next week for the next installment in our exploration of Mick Malone's career as we get into the 28th chapter of the book itself, entitled End of Ops and RTA. If you have a copy of Two Ranks, read along with us. I've been Toby Malone. Thank you to Mick Malone for daringly joining me on this journey. This has been Never Die Wondering, Mick Malone in his own words. For links to purchase your own copies of Mick's books, visit the show notes or mickmalone.com.au. This podcast is produced by Toby Malone, Joe Malone and Mick Malone, and engineered by Toby Malone. Theme music is The Happy Wanderer, the official SAS march, as reimagined by Cormac Malone and Meg Logue Malone. Yes, this is a family affair. This is a GM production in association with Imprimatur Books.